In the Second World War, sea power was defined by two weapons: the devastating, brutal firepower of the battleship and the long-range, strategic reach of the aircraft carrier. One ruled the surface, the other ruled the skies. But in 1943, as its empire was burning and its fleet was being sent to the bottom of the Pacific, the Imperial Japanese Navy made a desperate, radical gamble to combine them into one. The result was the IJN Ise and her sister ship Hyuga, two aging World War I-era dreadnoughts pulled from the battle line and put under the surgeon's knife. They were transformed into the only hybrid battleship carriers of the Second World War. But this Frankenstein's monster of a warship was not a new idea. The concept had been tried before, and it had ended in fire and in death. 25 years earlier, the British Royal Navy had its own mad experiment, HMS Furious. She was a high-speed cruiser with a single, massive 18-inch gun in the back and a short 160-foot flight deck bolted to the front. The problem? The ship's own massive superstructure, its bridge and its funnel, stood like a fortress wall right in the middle of the ship. To land, a pilot had to fly his fragile canvas biplane sideways, weaving around the hot exhaust fumes and masts, to somehow touch down on a deck moving at 20 knots. On August 2, 1917, Squadron Commander Edwin Dunning achieved the impossible. He became the first man in history to land a plane on a moving ship. He managed it twice. On his third attempt, his engine stalled. His plane was blown overboard. He drowned before his crew could reach him. The idea was abandoned as a death trap, and for 2 decades, no navy dared try it again, until 1943. The Japanese Navy was desperate. After the catastrophe at Midway, they were hemorrhaging aircraft carriers. They needed flight decks, and they needed them now. Their solution was the Ise and Hyuga. They didn't repeat the Furious's mistake. The entire rear half of the battleships, 2 massive 14-inch gun turrets, was torn out. In its place, they built a hangar and a flight deck. Up front, the ships remained a battleship, a formidable beast with 8 14-inch guns. It was a hybrid, designed to fight and launch aircraft. But there was a fatal flaw. The flight deck was too short. Using 2 massive steam catapults, the ship could launch its 22 aircraft, but it could never land them. It was a one-way ticket. The operational plan was suicide. The Ise would launch her dive bombers, who would then have to find a real carrier or a distant land base to be recovered. It was a weapon of last resort. The battleship carriers entered service in May 1944 and immediately ran into a tragic, ironic problem. Japan had no planes. The crippling carrier shortage had been replaced by an even more crippling pilot and aircraft shortage. The strangest ships in the world sailed with empty hangars. Their first and only major combat action was the Battle of Leyte Gulf. They were deployed without a single plane as a decoy force to lure the American fleet away. They were hunted by American carrier aircraft, their own flight decks useless, empty, and exposed. With the Imperial fleet shattered, the hybrids were recalled to Japan. Stripped of fuel, pilots, and purpose, they became nothing more than floating anti-aircraft batteries, moored in the shallow waters of Kure Harbor. It was there, in July 1945, that the very weapon they were designed to master finally came for them. American carrier aircraft attacked relentlessly. The Ise and Hyuga, with no ability to run and no planes to fight back, were bombed into the mud. They sank in shallow water. A pathetic, humiliating end for a superweapon that never got the chance to fight. The Ise and Hyuga remain a fascinating, failed what-if of naval history. The dream of a hybrid ship, however, never fully died. The Soviets would later build the Kiev class, a cruiser with anti-ship missiles on its bow and an angled deck. And in the 1970s, the US Navy even drafted plans to add a flight deck to the legendary Iowa-class battleships. But those ideas never took hold. The hybrid battleship carrier, a weapon born of pure desperation, remains a unique and ultimately failed chapter in the brutal story of naval warfare.